Hey there friendos, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to another awesome Zelda related video. Given that it is the extra spooky time of the year, it's late October, Halloween is just around the corner. Given all of this, and the fact that my house has basically become, infested with spooky spirits and ghosts and whatnot from this horrific time of, a little bit of horrors here, we're going to be taking a look at the Dead Hand. Dead Hand is a very, very wonderfully horrific enemy from the Ocarina of Time, dwelling in places where even the bravest souls of Hyrule would fear to tread. The bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple. The Shadow Temple being the place where all the greed and hatred and awful things in Hyrule are basically locked behind closed doors, literally locked behind a giant stone slab, if you will. Anything that you find in there is going to be pretty gnarly, and the Dead Hand is no exception in that regard. While taking a look at the Dead Hand, there are 3 questions that I would like to try and answer with this video. First off, what kind of environment would have led to this horrific monstrosity of an awful creature? If you were basing it off of, say, evolution or something like that. There's nothing saying exactly how long this Dead Hand, or whatever it was before it was a Dead Hand, if it did evolve into a Dead Hand, there's really nothing saying how long it's been down here, so it's very possible that evolution may have had a chance to work at that point. Number 2, how did it develop its fighting style? We know that it basically ensnares its prey and just kind of comes over and chomps on them while it's still alive, mind you. Don't get me started on exactly why that's a horrible thing, but I'm sure we can all make assumptions and know why being eaten alive would not exactly be ideal. And the third question, how many Dead Hand are there? It's clear that they're uncommon, but exactly how uncommon are they? Real quick before we get started, hey, hit the subscribe button. If you do it, I won't have to keep bothering you about it. The logic is there. Hit the bell, like the video. Thanks, you're the best. I suppose we should probably take a look at these questions in reverse order. The Dead Hand. 1 or 2? Personally, I lean towards the idea that there is only one Dead Hand. And that's simply because most of the other mini-bosses in Ocarina of Time, once we fight them and defeat them, they explode into the blue flames, back into the ether with them. However, the Dead Hand just kind of sinks into the earth. Now, who knows exactly what this means? Maybe it's kind of, releasing its energy back into the ether, if you will, to be reborn again in the Shadow Temple. I suppose an argument could be made for there being 2, because literally you fight it twice, which is pretty good evidence in and of itself, but again, I tend to lead a little bit more towards there being a single one that you just fight over and over again, kind of like a recurring nightmare. You can do your best to kill it, but the Dead Hand will never truly die. Number 2, how in the world did its fighting style get developed? It's basically laying out a trap for potential prey. Now, you would think it would be in a bit more populated of an area, bottom of the well, bottom of the Shadow Temple, not a lot of people are going by, so there's definitely a lot of downtime for it to just be, nestled in all of its skulls, which it's made a very wonderful house out of. Don't kill me in my nightmares, please. Basically, the Dead Hand will lie in wait for unsuspecting prey to get curious, about what are those big, long, slender arms with horrific bone claspers at the end. Let's be realistic. In real life, if you saw that, you would find a way to get out of that gate, and you would be moving back on about your way. It's very clear that these arms are at least relatively strong. I mean, it basically grabs Link on the top of the head here, and it's holding him. Like, just holding him right there. His whole body is just clamped onto his head with those nasty nails, probably digging into his skull, just... You're mine, buddy. The fact that it doesn't deal damage is honestly shocking to me, but hey, it's a kid's game. You're not gonna have a lobotomy on accident, every time you fight a Dead Hand. Although, realistically, the Dead Hand would be one of the most threatening in real life enemies in the Zelda universe. I mean, think about it. It has 4 hands, you have 4 limbs. That's it. You win. GG. GG to the Dead Hand. if it grabs your 2 legs, takes you onto the ground, grabs both your hands, what are you gonna do? You're gonna pray and hope is exactly what you're gonna do, that he eats your goddamn head first. This is getting dark. It's October. It's okay. Another great question is, are these hands actually attached to the dead hand, or are they kind of their own entity? And the fact that when you damage the hands and make them recede back into the dirt, only later to be regenerated at an alarming rate of about 20 seconds or so, the dead hand itself does not actually take any damage, so I'm led to believe these are basically separate entities, probably connected to the dead hand. I mean, the same color, so it makes sense. That's exactly as scientific as I'm willing to make that observation, but I do believe they are separate entities. And if they're not, then wow. Oh, luckily for any kind of real-world encounter on these enemies, the dead hand is not exactly the most intelligent being in Hyrule. Once it snares something, its insatiable hunger will basically make it, walk towards that enemy, waddle towards it in a really gross way, and it will try to take that bite if you're close enough. Even if you have a knife literally stabbing it in the face, it's still going to try. Given the fact that it has to lower its only weak point to basically attack you, and it still does this even if you're not caught in the snare, pretty dumb enemy, but they had to give you some way to defeat it, I suppose. Assuming the dead hand did have some kind of accelerated evolution, or was just down in these areas long enough to actually be able to evolve traits that would help it to survive longer and longer, its long neck is very, very good defensively when we're talking about, short weapons. The amount of reach that you would need to attack a dead hand while it's not in its attacking, posture, basically trying to bite you, is basically spear length. Really, anything else, as we see, is all but ineffective. Weapons just don't work on it. And there may be a reason for that too, which leads us very nicely into the dead hand's environment. How in the world would this monstrosity be born evolutionarily out of what environment would have led to this? It's horrible, it's horrifying. Now, discarding any kind of magic for a little while, we can definitely see that it's clearly very, very white. Simple reason for this, there's no sun down there, okay? It's bleached. It's basically a bleached boy. The dead hand has these red nubs for hands. Most likely they were either cut off, or at some point, maybe he was clawing at the walls just long enough that it just eventually just had these bloody pulps just to deal with. Given the fact that the dead hand does in fact burrow, these may have been an advantage evolutionarily in allowing him to, pick through the dirt and, skulls and stuff that he's made his, again, wonderful house out of. Not judging. It's not that weird, even, have all 6 of your barriers to your room made of skulls. Not weird. In an evolutionary sense, these picks would make for getting through and, moving these skulls to the side and, digging through dirt a lot easier, so could very well be he just evolved to not need hands. I mean, he has tons of extra hands if he needs to grab something off the top shelf. You need the sugar, Johnny.
I got you.
Sprouts arm from the goddamn ground, grabs sugar. Johnny dies of a heart attack. We're moving forward with our lives. The sores on its body and its kind of red coloration is often linked to bloody marks and, open sores, as I had said before. Given the fact that this monster is literally burrowing into skulls and rock and dirt, given that it is lying in wait for prey, it's probably down there for quite some time, rubbing against all these skulls and these probably sharp bones from these enemies that it has basically consumed would definitely leave you with a lot of marks on your body, not to mention you're basically down there in all that moisture and stuff, so these markings are probably a product of its surrounding, and it makes it spooky as hell. However, this would have made it very, very calloused as well, if not calloused, just numb to any kind of pain happening to its midsection, basically anything but its neck. In essence, making slashing at it basically useless. It doesn't have any nerves there to feel any kind of pain, ergo, no damage done. It's basically natural armor through the most unfortunate and painful way possible, but it works, and it happened. Now, Newbornkilik, I hear you saying, You're talking about evolution an awful lot, but for something to evolve into something, it has to start as something else. What in the world would have evolved into this monstrosity? And for that, I tell you, I do not know. No clue. I'm guessing it's probably a human of some kind, maybe one of the people that was trapped down there in the dungeon. Eventually, probably killed a bunch of people. After this camp was eventually discarded, do you really think they're gonna let the prisoners roam free? No. They probably opened the gates and said, hey, fend for yourself. Watch the big skull tolas, they bite. Or they spin around on you. So I suppose if I had to give my best guess from an evolutionary standpoint, this may be a very malformed human. I don't want to think of exactly how this thing reproduces to cause evolution. Assuming that some kind of magic may have been involved, there may have been an, elevated evolution process, whereas the neck grew longer to defend itself from all of the prisoners that it would drag into its lair, and they probably have some kind of weapons that they would have made, homemade shanks and stuff like that, like little clubs and stuff. So hence the longer neck to help defend against those things. And yeah, eventually it made itself a very very nice home. Nice home, okay? Good home. You know what? Probably has really good real estate values, so it's very clear that these have been simply my thoughts, but if you did enjoy the video, please do consider leaving it a like. It does help me out an awful lot, and hey, it lets me know that you are in fact enjoying these borderline Zelda theories, I suppose, and maybe, just maybe, YouTube will decide to show my YouTube videos to anyone. In all seriousness, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. This helped me out an awful lot. I'd like to thank my patrons for being so patient for me. I just took a bit of a break here, so, the fact that they're still sticking with me even after this 2-week-long break really does mean a lot to me, and thank you for coming back to the spookiness that was the latest video. Anyway, I'm Newbornkilik, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.